Welcome back, folks, to the WP-Tonic This Week in WordPress and SaaS. It's episode 740. Got a friend and a returning guest. I've got Heather Wilde Renze with me. We're going to be talking about diversity, the gap in WordPress and tech in general. Heather has spoken well and deeply on this subject, and she's got some really interesting reflections and thoughts about it. It's an important discussion. Should be a great show. Before we go into the meat and potatoes of the show, I've got a couple great messages from the sponsors, the major sponsors of the show. We will be back in a few moments, folks.
This podcast episode is brought to you by Lifter LMS, the leading learning management system solution for WordPress. If you or your client are creating any kind of online course, training-based membership website, or any type of e-learning project, Lifter LMS is the most secure, stable, well-supported solution on the market. Go to lifterlms.com and save 20% at checkout with coupon code podcast20. That's podcast20. Enjoy the rest of your show.
We're coming back, folks. Just want to point out I've got some great special deals from some of the sponsors. Plus, I've got a list of annotated recommendations of plugins and SaaS services that we at WP-Tonic uses. Got a great resource. Where can you go to get all these great resources? Well, it's quite simple. Go over to WP-Tonic/deals. WP-Tonic/deals. So, Heather, let's go straight into it. Maybe you can give to the listeners and viewers that are new. You used to be a regular panelist on one of my other shows, but we might have a few people that don't know your background. Maybe you can give a quick outline of your history in tech and your specific interest in diversity.
So, I mean, you may not realize this, but I happen to be a woman. So, I mean,
I would have never guessed it.
Well, no, I mean, actually, that actually brings up the point. Like, so some people, you can't tell necessarily how they present. So, the gender that they are presenting as may not be the gender that you think they are. So, I am a woman, and I am in technology, and that for some people is may be a difficult choice throughout their career. I actually started how a lot of people start, because I was encouraged at an early age by my parents, my father especially, but my entire family encouraged me to be involved in technology. I mean, I was building things from like junk parts at a scrapyard, like when I was. I mean, that was like my fun thing that my father and I would do on weekends when he was home from his work. And yeah, so I mean, it was like a whole family involvement to encourage me to be in tech, and so it's been a lifelong thing for me. And when I started my actual career, I didn't know necessarily what I wanted to do after college. I mean, so I went to school for astronautics. I was going on a NASA track, and then my health turned out to not be good enough to do that. So I had like an existential crisis of what was I going to do with my life. So, but I knew that it was going to have something still to do with technology. And I always had that to fall back on. So, yeah, so I went into game design, helped to build a company for the government.
Can we pause there just for a second? So, because obviously you're a friend, and I know I've watched some of your videos and interviews. So I think this is important that you were part of the gaming industry, which has got a bit of a reputation to be some negative connotations towards its attitudes towards women that are game developers or the general community in general. Looking back, what's your position on that, what I've just outlined?
So yeah, the game industry is it's a dichotomy, because it's actually both one of the most welcoming industries that I've ever been in. Like gamers, I mean, I just think of like some of my best experiences in my entire career, both as a professional, but also as a consumer, have been with the community of gamers. But also, it's not very forgiving to people. So I mean, it's an extremely weird thing. So my being a woman in my particular design studio, and also the company that I worked for, which was THQ, was never an issue. And in fact, one of my closest friends for the last 30 years now is a transgendered person. And we worked together in the same studio. And again, that was never an issue for the studio that we're in, for the people that we worked with. However, their career since that studio has been stalled, has been an issue almost everywhere that they've worked. And so their experience was extremely different from mine, and has been they've had a very hard time of it. Whereas with me, like I've never experienced I've well, I mean, that is to say, like, I mean, I started out as a booth babe, like, because that was the easy way to get into gaming, because you can. So a booth babe is somebody at conferences where, like, if you have the body, you just wear the costume and you get people, you attract them to the booth. And at a game conference, you need to, like, Olivia Munn is a perfect example of this. You have to have the intelligence to continue to have the conversations with people once they get to the booth. And if you hire the wrong booth babe, then gamers just leave immediately, because like they don't want just a body, they want a brain. So you have to have the right combination of someone. Like they have to be a gamer, they have to be intelligent, and they also have to look cute in the costume. So
Oh, I would fail at all three hurdles ever.
well, I mean, I know it's kind of a sexist thing, but I mean, that's just how it is. And but gamer girls are, like, I mean, it's a whole subculture. And if you if you are willing to do that, then like you're immediately accepted by the gamer community. And that's why you'll see it like Comic-Con, for example. Like there's the whole cosplay subculture. I mean, and the thing is, like, looking cute in the costume doesn't necessarily mean you have a model type body. It means you're confident. And that confidence is what is attractive to the gamers.
So I think your outline of the gaming community being generous but also can be extremely critical is very similar to my observation of the WordPress community. Is we've got a lot of linkage. So let's move on. So you got into gaming industry. How long did you stay in the gaming industry, and what was the next step outside the gaming industry? What led you to leaving it and your next move?
I was involved in gaming from one form or other for about 7 years, and that overlapped with. I started to, actually a little bit longer than that, but I started to work on government projects after that. Like I went over because what happened was 9/11 was a huge impact on the gaming world. People just stopped playing games. I mean, they were just the amount of money people spent on games went down. It was an interesting time, and I think it was because there was such a successful recruiting drive at the time for people to sign up for going away to fight, and those were the profile of the gamer at the time. So there's a whole slew of why that might have been the case, like why gaming went down when usually it goes up at times of crisis. But for a good 18 months, the whole gaming industry went down. So yeah, our studio had to close. A bunch of other boutiques ended up going down until Red Dead Redemption and others came along and brought the industry back. But what we decided to pivot, and our friends started a government company that became a government contractor to help solve problems that were created by 9/11. And we did that for the next 5 years. And then we started a company called Evernote.
Yes, because that's one of the key areas that you're noted for, your early involvement with Evernote, isn't it?
Yeah. And that I'm happy to say is doing it's still going strong, like 20 years later. The company's
Amazing, really, isn't it? It's amazing.
Yeah. I mean, being able to build a company that people use every day, that helps their lives. That's always a great thing. So yeah, and it's but going from like having the background of thinking from game design and having that UI, and then moving into like government and thinking from like that enterprise security kind of understanding, and then building a note-taking platform, and productivity tools, like taking those two things together to create a beautiful software that is also like enterprise security minded, is it's all building on each other.
Yeah. So just to quantify this, so you were in the early days of Evernote. I would imagine that not only was you on paid salary, you had some element of equity in the business. And obviously it got bought out. But since then, you've been involved in a number of startups, consultancy. So to say that you've got a very diverse and extensive understanding of the tech business would be a slight understatement.
Yeah. No, I've been working as a consultant, an investor, and as a CTO for many years.
Well, the reason why I've drawn this out, your background, is just to give an indication to the new listeners and viewers that you know your stuff, and you do know what you're talking about. Because I think in this particular subject that we're going to be covering, I personally think that's very important, Heather. And I think you agree on that. So if you don't mind, let's move on, because we could talk about your...
Of course. And I think it is important to say
that the next 2 hours, couldn't we? Really, couldn't we?
Yeah, I think it's important to say that I'm a lot older than I look. I know a lot of people are like, "Oh, she's only like 20 years old." No, I've been around the block a bit.
Yeah, I'm not going to pass any remark on that. So I'm in deep enough trouble anyway, Heather, with a certain team in WordPress. So let's go on, because let's go on to question 2 that I have given you. Obviously intellectually and morally, I think diversity is extremely important, but we live in a capitalist-driven society. That's just the fact of it, for its good parts and its bad parts. And in most companies, the bottom line is, does something generate more profit, more income for the business? I feel that diversity does help the bottom line. It does encourage the company to be more, in pure economical terms, improves the bottom line. what is your thoughts and reflection about some of the statements I've just made?
Well, I mean, it's been proven that when you have a diverse board, for example, then you make decisions that are more uh, universal for a company. Um, so, I mean, because you're thinking about a broader picture with a larger perspective of users. However, um, conversely, uh, there's a lot to say about when you're making decisions uh, for strictly without emotion. Um, like, I mean, when you bring in like an emotional perspective to uh, a capitalist decision making, then you might make some decisions that are not truly fiduciarily responsible. So, from a capitalist perspective, uh, having like one mind and not a committee is often the best way. From a human perspective, having that committee that it has diverse voices is ethically more responsible. So um, it is that ethical dilemma, like how like you can be a conscious capitalist, and the Quakers proved that you can have a successful company and be a conscious capitalist and have like diverse thought in building a company and still make money. However, I mean, it's been proven time and time again that uh, if you want to make the most money, then you have to just be ruthless and not think about those diverse things. So um, I mean, it's no matter how many times you try to bring. I mean, if you bring capitalism as the argument, then people will always say a diverse board is going to be is going to make you less money, and that is extremely controversial to say, but it is. But I think that ethically, we need to go down the conscious capitalism route and have diverse boards, because um, we can't just mine everything for every last cent.
Oh, are you still there, Heather?
Yeah, did
Oh,
you lose me?
no, I'm sorry. Sorry, got. I didn't know if you stopped. Just let me say something.
Oh
Cool.
yeah, yeah.
All right. Do you want me to remark on what you've just said?
Please do. I know it's. I know what I said is controversial. I told you this was going to be a controversial kind of day.
Oh, by the way, listeners and viewers, if you're not really into a serious discussion about this topic, this isn't the podcast interview for you. And I'm not being disparaging there or flippant, because I am going to get a considerable amount of grief connected to this interview.
I'm sorry.
Well, no, I knew when I asked you to have an interview about this subject, I knew I was laying myself out for those in the WordPress community that are gunning for me. They're just going to utilize this as another way of attacking me, but I understand. Well, there's a lot of people. There's a lot. Just my own reflection back what you just said. A lot in the VC and in Silicon Valley would say that you're being extremely naive here. I don't think that. I'm just being a advocate here. I totally personally agree with you, but I know that there would be a lot of individuals that you probably mix with much more than I do, that would say, they might not say it in front of you, Heather, but they probably would say it behind your back, that you're being extremely naive there, that all that matters is the green.
That's exactly what I said. Like I said
Oh,
exactly that like that it's more. I mean, that everyone thinks that capitalism is the most important thing, and that, I mean, what we should be thinking about is the ethics, but like anyone that's running a business is only thinking about capitalism.
Right, so I probably I'm not the brightest tool in the toolbox, so I've probably got the Ronnie reflection there. So let's move on before I make a bigger fool of myself, which is quite easy. So it's a bit linked to what we just said. I think there's a lot what I classify as checkbox diversity in most companies. Basically, the public face, the PR face, they produce, like I say, what I call checkbox diversity. Would you agree with that statement? And can you, if you do, can you give some insight about what we're talking about when it comes to checkbox diversity?
Yeah. So when you have a diversity and equity inclusion program in your company, for most people, most companies that start this, they don't know exactly what it means. And they just want to say, like, we have a DEI program. And then they might put somebody in HR in charge of it and then say, okay, now we have a head of DEI or we have a DEI program. And then they forget all about it because they have checked the box and say, like, we can point to the fact that we have a head of DEI or we have this DEI program. And as far as the executives are concerned, that's good enough. But now it falls on whoever they've assigned that to create a program. And then they don't have a budget for it. They don't have any actual oversight. Like, they don't have any real buy-in from the executives. They just have an empty title. Now, in a lot of companies, they actually, where it's both bottom up and top down, where the employees have asked for it and the leaders are driving it, that person that's been assigned to it does have a budget, does have like a driving force, both like the people are asking for it and the board is asking for it and the leaders are checking in on it. That's where it isn't just a checking of the box. So, I mean, what matters, I mean, there's just, it really comes into, are they doing it because they think it looks good? Or are they doing it because there was really a need for it in the company? And some would argue, like, okay, every company has a need for it, but I don't think that's true necessarily either. So if your company has hits certain guideposts, like if there's, I mean, if you have a certain number of employees that are having issues, then you definitely need to look into having a DEI policy. If you if your entire company is male and you're not Chippendales, then you have like a potential need for this. So, or if your entire company is female, like, I mean, like you really do need to have, there's certain situations where like having a good DEI policy and somebody that's driving that and has the resources to drive it are important. But I mean, it's not necessary for every company.
Right. How do you encourage, in a practical way, based on your experience, diversity in a company that feels that it isn't doing a great job about it?
Well, I mean,
that's only a slight question, but I'm just asking.
No. I mean, if they feel that they're not doing a great job, then that's actually the first step. Like, they already are asking the question. And like with my coach hat on, I think that them already realizing that there's a problem, they're already on the path to fixing it. The real issues are when there's definitely a problem and they don't realize it. So like what in my game company that I was in, we didn't have a formal DEI program. I mean, this was back in 1999, like they didn't exist yet. But we obviously didn't have a DEI problem because like, I mean, like my coworker was trans, I was female, like we were in a great environment. Like the working environment was great. Nobody had any issues with anyone, and it was perfect. Whereas every other company my former coworker was at after that, there were obvious issues. They tried to report them, and there was no recourse for them. So in those companies, that was where a DEI program or some form would have been helpful. But those companies that they were in that still exist, those game companies, still don't have any recourse for those kinds of employees. So that's and those employees are asking for it, but it's just never been added.
Would you? I'm surmising that is on purpose as well.
They would rather lose employees because it's like one of the larger game companies, and they know that there's so many people to replace them.
Yeah. Would you? I'm only surmising this before we go for our break. I'm surmising that one of the things that might contribute to a poor diversity in a culture that people from different backgrounds don't feel welcome, especially around tech, is what I see as really mixing personal and business together in what I consider a hot mess. What I mean by this, Heather, is the encouragement of the company being seen as a family. Literally you spend all your social time, all your friends are part of the company, that the company is an extension of a larger family, that you mix your work colleagues and you see them as your friends, and they're not really, which you learn very quickly as you mature. But especially in the tech industry, it was encouraged quite a lot, that you could have subsidized meals. You had a gym at the place that you spent all your hours there. It was all one big kind of club. But the problem with that is if you're somebody that feels that you're not a member of the club, what's your reflection of what I've just outlined?
I mean, I was seduced by that myself for a bit, and it's really difficult. I mean, I try extremely hard with my employees. I mean, I want to be friends with my employees, but I have to, like, I'm their CTO. I am not their friend, and they want to be friends with me, and I have to make sure that there's that line, that like it. And I also want to make sure, like, absolutely be friends with these people. Like, I mean, it's great if you have friends, if you're friendly and really do become friends with these people at work. But remember, they're your work friends, and it.
Well, it comes. Sorry to interrupt, and I've got to be
Yeah.
very careful in this conversation
Yeah.
because of the lag, and also
Yeah.
a little bit of my neurodiversity background. But I don't want to come across that I'm dominating this,
Yeah.
because I'm going to be accused. There are going to be some accusations thrown at me as we get further in this conversation. But I'm just losing my track here. I think the power dynamics, I think that's what you're talking about. There's you want a friendly business relationship, but you got to be realistic about the power dynamics.
Yeah.
You got the power, more power to some extent than the people that are working for you. So it cannot be an equal friendship on an equal friendship basis. Am I on the right track?
Absolutely. And I think a lot of people make that mistake. And it's even worse as a woman, because there's so much of a spotlight on me for things that I could do potentially wrong. And I mean, insert minority here. It doesn't matter what kind of minority I am. I could be a Black man or somebody from another country. It doesn't matter. I mean, I could be a 50-year-old man from India. As long as I'm some sort of minority, that power differential is still evident, and you have to be extremely careful of that. But I mean, when I was at Evernote, even just as a peer employee with other managers, I still had to be careful because I was friends with these people at work, but I realized because I was so involved in the company, I didn't have time for friends outside of work. And then when I developed cancer, um, like my entire friend base was at work, and they didn't have time to support me because they were busy with work. So thankfully, I'd started to build a friend base outside of work, but I'd only just started to build that. And thankfully, those friends were really, really strong already. And they were able to support me. And I realized this was unhealthy, this work cult scenario that I was in. And that's
But
why
would
I
you
eventually left.
agree in tech and in solid, it was encouraged because it helped the bottom line, but it also has consequences. It does
Yes.
make the whole thing into a bit of a hot mess, doesn't it?
Absolutely. And I mean, but it's accidental. It's not, I mean, it's encouraged for you to stay at work, to keep working, because again, it's that capitalist drives the bottom line, keeps you at your desk. But it's accidental that you don't have relationships outside of work. I mean, some companies, I mean, it may seem like that we're trying to force you to like date your coworkers and things like that. And in some cases, like some companies may have like encouraged that, like WeWork. Um, but uh but no, I mean, I think it's just you don't have the opportunity because you're so busy with work. So that may just be where
Mm.
that's the only place you find people. But I mean, the same thing happens at college. Like you end up finding
Mm.
because that's the only place you meet anyone. So, I mean, it's not, I realized as I got older that all these tech companies, they're just trying to keep recreating what they had at the college dorm because that was where they felt the most alive. So those overnighters that they were pulling, those keggers that they were going to, those all those things, that was what they're trying to keep recreating. Um, and it's the frat boys specifically that are trying to recreate their college years, the best times of their lives, and then spread it out to everyone else. So
Right, I think we're going to go for our break. We'll be back with this really. We're going to go down all sorts of. Well, I knew it was going to be, and Heather was up for it. I knew it was going to be a very diverse conversation. Heather knows me anyway, so she was up for it. We will be back in a few moments, folks. We're coming back. We're having a real discussion about diversity, how to implement it in a practical way, and some of the things that influence it. Before we go into the second half of this fascinating discussion, I just want to point out that if you're looking for a great hosting partner around e-learning and membership websites as a WordPress developer, look at WP-Tonic. We have a great affiliate program where if a client signs up for a year's hosting, you can earn 40% upfront. And also we provide all the plugins and all the other things that you require, so you don't have to ask for the customer to buy this plugin, that service. It makes everything really smooth and available in one place. If that sounds interesting, go over to WP-Tonic/affiliates and have a look at that. So on to the next part of the conversation, Heather. Can you give some quick things that you've seen a company do? Let's say they've identified that they've got a they're not doing fantastic when it comes to diversity. Are there any one or two things based on your extensive experiences that they can do that in let's give it a 3 month, 6 month, year, where there could be some measurable, tangible improvement in the situation, or is it just too complicated? All you can do is just apply best practices and monitor them by the higher management. Are we dealing with that type of scenario?
Well, one of the things is if you have any new positions that you're hiring for, make sure that your job descriptions are diversely written. Use non-gendered language, so that it's not so that you're not hiring for. I mean, it's a delicate balance to make sure that you're not hiring for one gender or another in your job description. Also, make sure that you're only asking for specific skills that you actually need, and not for requirements on things that aren't necessary. So, like in my postings, I don't ask for any number of years of experience in anything. I don't ask for certain degrees unless they're absolutely required for something. But I will ask for certifications in something if they're relevant. But I'm looking for a candidate. I'm not looking for. I recognize that candidates don't all have the same privileged backgrounds to be able to go to like a Harvard or even a state school. Like state schools are expensive, and you might not have the same background to get there. But if you're not in the phase to hire somebody new, then take a look at who are in your management positions and how did they get there. Because the people that are your managers are generally the ones that are making decisions on who gets assignments for work, what types of roles are being assigned to people in general. So if all of the managers in your company are men, then they're generally going to be biased towards assigning things to other men, or assigning certain types of tasks to women to do. If all of your managers are women, they're going to be biased in the same way, but towards women. And hopefully, and even if they say they're not biased, that's just how it is. Like, people have those unconscious biases. So making sure that people take the IAT implicit association tests, so that they can understand their own biases and where they might be. Don't have them share the results with you. Just like make them available so that people can start to understand and overcome their own implicit biases is a good start. There's also some diversity toolkits that you can implement as a company. But it's really just start by taking a look at what your company makeup is now and thinking about where those biases can be in your existing company, and then maybe shake it up a little bit.
That was fantastic. Thank you for that, Heather. But also, what does, in my opinion, the actual culture, genetics and culture are the two, genetics, your parents, and your culture are the dominant factors of how you see the world, in my opinion. How does this whole scenario that we've outlined, is it driven by the founders and the CEO and the chief financial officer of a company when it comes to this?
It depends on the company. I mean, like, as the CTO, I always feel like I'm the guardian of culture in the company because I'm developing products and I have to build the ethics of the company into the products that we deliver. And so I'm always having conversations with our CEO, and then arguing with the COO, who happens to be our. I mean, I'm on board with our CFO. Like the CFO is behind me 100% on all of our security decisions and our ethics decisions. But we still have to talk to the COO and CEO about these things too. But I'm lucky that I have a CFO that backs me up on all of our decisions, and I don't have to argue with them. But it's not the same in every company. The CFO is usually like, I don't care about security because we can just pay the insurance fine later, and it's usually cheaper than whatever it's going to cost. And I mean, I don't care about building in security. And I mean, any CTO that's listening to this has heard the exact same thing.
Yeah.
But I mean, like me talking about cyber liability insurance to a room full of CTOs, you'll hear a lot of them groan because like
Well,
they
I'm sorry
either,
to interrupt, but wouldn't
yeah,
you also hear that conversation when it comes to diversity? You know, we got
yeah,
insurance, we can cover ourselves to a certain degree.
I've heard that same thing. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's the like it, but it all comes down to like there's an app that is hitting the waves today that goes both to diversity and secure like cyber liability. Um, uh, is I can't remember the name of it, but it's like the big new meme generator kind of where you can upload your picture and it uses AI to generate like a new version of yourself, and we'll find it and put it in the links.
Oh, I
Um,
definitely need that, Heather.
yeah, yeah, but I mean, the thing is, because of the ethics involved in who programmed it, um, it's biased towards like an anglicized, like white version of like what is beauty. So like if you upload a black face, like a black person to it, it's gonna like whiten their face to make them more beautiful. If you upload a child's face to it, it's going to like add like breasts and things to it because it's gonna make them like, so the ethics involved in designing this app, it wasn't thought through. They didn't. All they were thinking about was like, how much money are we going to make, and like, are people going to pay for it? And the thing is, they absolutely are making a lot of money, and it doesn't matter how many lawsuits they get because they have insurance for that.
Yep, that was you touched some subjects there. Let's move on. So let's wrap it up, and then we can let's go through a couple of quick questions. I like to end with a guest, and then maybe we can have some bonus content where we talk about some other topics around this. How does that sound, Heather? So I always like this question. If you had a time machine and you could go back to your early years of your involvement in tech, and you could coach yourself or mentor yourself, would there be one or two things that you wish you knew now that you knew back then?
I always say the same thing. Buy Google. But no.
Buy Apple. Don't you
Yeah,
read Apple?
both of them. But other than that, it's just stay the course. Don't change anything because I like who I am now, and I wouldn't be who I am if I hadn't gone through all of the things that I've been through. So no matter how hard it gets, no matter what you've been through, just you've made the right decisions every step of the way.
Yeah, I think that's the interesting thing about it, because obviously those experiences, if you didn't have those experiences, you wouldn't be the person you are now, would you? So that is the problem with the time machine, isn't it? So are there any kind of books, websites, online resources, people that you follow that you think have some great ideas and knowledge that you would like to share with the audience? Apart from, maybe you should mention your own great book, actually. It's quite a good read, isn't it?
So yeah, I wrote my own book. It's called Birth of a Unicorn, and it's a real fun book. It puts you in the seat of what would you do if you were in this kind of position. A book that has always been very helpful is called The Four Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz. It's about agreements you should make with yourself to live your best life. That one's always good. Another one is Mindset, The Psychology of Success by Carol Dweck. And I like also Enchantment by Guy Kawasaki. So
Yeah, that's a great one.
Those should be good.
Thank you so much, Heather. What's the best way for people to find out more about you and some of your ideas, Heather?
You can reach me at Heatheriel on all the socials, and heatheriel.com.
We're going to end the podcast part of the show, folks. We're going to continue this discussion for another 10, 15 minutes. We're going to talk about diversity. Also, maybe if Heather's up to it, talk about race in tech as well. You'll be able to watch the whole interview on the YouTube channel, the WP-Tonic YouTube channel. So go over there and also subscribe. It does really support the show, interviews like this, which I think are quite unique, actually. You won't find them anywhere else in the WordPress SaaS space, hopefully. And we'll be back next week with another great guest. We'll see you soon, folks. Bye. Let's delve into diversity and race and the business about we have subconscious biases. It's a difficult subject because we all do. Biological biases, cultural biases. It has some negative connotations, but it makes us unique individuals, doesn't it? Our biases. It just depends, I suppose. I'm just giving you what my thoughts about this, and I'm just interested on your thoughts after. That these biases, where do you think it becomes a real problem? I suppose you're going to say is when you're not aware, but they are subconscious biases, aren't they? So where's the balance?
I think when you have biases, everyone has biases. Everyone has conscious ones and everyone has unconscious ones. And they're like, having a bias is not bad. Like, it's not inherently bad to have a bias. Where it is bad is when you know you have a bias and you like it has a negative connotativity and you're still using it. So like if you are if you say like know that you if you know that you have a predisposition to assuming that somebody from India, for example, is automatically going to not speak English as well as somebody from America. And then you meet somebody who went to school went to school their entire life in a British school, has a degree from Cambridge University, in literature, and speaks English better than you do, but you still assume that they don't speak English as well as you because they are from India, and they have an accent. Then you have to force yourself to overcome that bias every time you talk to them. And there's a lot of people who can't overcome their bias no matter what they do. When presented with somebody who obviously is like the proof that their bias is incorrect, they still can't do it. That's where it becomes a problem. It's a problem anyway that you have the bias in the first place, but it's especially a problem when you're just assuming the generality to the one. So like I like to say all the time, like there's the exception that proves the rule, but there's also stereotypes for a reason.
Well, yeah, it's a tricky one, isn't it? So let's get further down this road if you're up for it.
Yeah.
So recently, I've had some trainings around diversity. I felt that some of the training was really had a deeper, was really based on critical race theory. Are you aware of some of the elements of critical race theory, Heather?
I am. Yes.
Right. So you know where we're going with this.
Uh-huh.
Which is basically based on the Frankfurt School of and critical theory, which in my mind is a postmodernist Marxist outlook. This is only my reflection on critical race theory when it applies to diversity training. It basically says that all individuals, basically that I'm really struggling with my words here because I've got to be extremely fair here. And I want to point out to the listeners and viewers, this is totally my own reflection on this. It does say that all white people are subconsciously racist, and all developed white cultures are fundamentally racist based. What are your own views on this?
I mean, I think that it's more that it allows us to understand the way that racism exists. Like it's a framework that helps us understand race inequality rather than saying that everyone is implicitly racist. So, like, giving us a set of tools to like theorize, like, hypothetically, like, if we were in this situation, how would we react? Like, if we like, yeah, I mean, having a framework to have conversations and hypothesize things is entirely different than saying people are implicitly racist. But that's why things like the implicit association test exist. For example, when I take those, because of where I was brought up, I mean, and this comes through in a lot of ways. It all depends on where you were raised, how you were raised. Like, I am not white black biased, but I am male female biased in the opposite direction. Like, I am more biased towards men than women. Like, I'm biased against women, slightly, not, but I'm mostly in the center. But I mean, when you take these tests, you realize why that is. I mean, you may not realize why it is, but you realize it is, and then it helps you to correct. So I think using something like critical race theory helps you understand that, I mean, or like that framework, which again is something that they talk about in like a master's level college thing, not anything younger than that. It helps you to have a framework for a discussion on how to use these biases and discuss them.
Well, it is tricky because I see fundamentally diversity and equality to be a human right issue, fundamentally. But in the present, I've got myself into some real hot waters, Heather, because I was extremely naive and stupid, and I deserved a lot of the criticism I got. Some of it was very unfair, but it goes with the territory when you do a reasonably popular podcast and you decide to go down a certain path. You've got to take the good with the bad and suck it up. But on the left and right, when it comes to diversity and fairness and equality, it has become a kind of political football, and the whole language, just utilizing certain language, will inflame certain elements on the far right and on the far left, that not only do they have what I consider the justifiable and totally, I was going to utilize the word honest position, that equality, diversity, fairness are things to promote and encourage, but they also have their own political agendas as well, which they want to promote. Am I being, when it comes to diversity, do you think I'm correct in what I've just outlined, or do you think I'm just, or isn't there a political, to be a human being is to be a political statement to some degree, so to think you can divorce the things is naive?
I think that there are some people right now, like that we are in a very charged political climate worldwide, no matter what nationality you are, no matter what, no matter where you're from. I mean, just look at Peru yesterday. I mean, it's not a good time to be Peruvian. If you're in, if you're in America, it's a very difficult time. If you're in England, it's a very difficult time. And no matter where you are, your nationality, people immediately ask you, okay, so what's your political party? And even not having a political party is a charged issue, because then like people on either side are going to be like, well, you're the reason that X is in power, and like I can't believe that like you have like, so yeah, I mean, there's no way to stay out of politically charged conversations. It used to be you can't, you're not supposed to talk about politics and religion, and now that's all anyone talks about anywhere in the world. So you're right. I mean, I think if we go, like, part of it goes back to technology. The whole radical transparency thing has caused people to overshare every aspect of their lives and become become this thing where even if they don't fully believe a certain thing, if they don't fully feel a certain way, they feel like they have to declare on one side or another of every single issue. I mean, even if those thoughts aren't fully formed, and then you're stuck. You've said one thing, and now people assume that that's how you feel forever and always, when people aren't black and white. People are gray their entire lives. We're forming, we're changing, we're making decisions. So yeah, I mean, something that you said yesterday doesn't mean that you believe it today or even like a minute after you said it. So yeah, I mean, I'm sorry that you're caught up in all of this, and I think the push by technology for radical transparency is causing a lot of people to, I mean, I like ending up in this whole bubble of like, it's exposing, I think, some biases that may not actually be there.
Well, it's all very difficult, isn't it? I think some of the criticism that I received on reflection was totally justifiable, because I was being extremely naive, thinking I could bring up a story. And then the certain language I utilise, which I think was quite fair, I didn't realise has really connotations. But also some of it was, some of the criticism was totally unfair, and it had a political agenda to it. And also some people came out of the woodwork that had personal animosity towards me, which is totally understandable. There's some people that really don't like me, Heather. I'm not a sociopath. I don't want people not to not like me, but on the other hand, I'm not that bothered either. And I'd imagine you're the same. You know, you don't want people to dislike you, but if they do, you're not that bothered, are you? No, I thought you would reply to that. So let's just finish off, because I know you're a busy lady. So if Elon came for you for some coaching, Heather, about Twitter and about what he's up to, what would you that initial coaching discussion, what would you advise him to do, which he needs to do at the present moment?
Honestly, I wouldn't have him change anything. So I've been through a couple of mergers and acquisitions, and I've coached people through them. And the worst ones are when a CEO comes in and tries to like be all kumbaya with the existing employees, when their management style is entirely different from the one before it, because it always causes like an extended period of internal strife. It usually will cause like stagnant development. The company will not grow for however long it takes for the transition period to happen. The ones that work best are when somebody comes in, immediately puts their foot down, and like there's a lot of turnover right away, but then they bring in people that like the culture shifts to the new regime immediately, and then they bring in people that believe in that new vision, that new culture, and then they get things going. So like it may take a hit for a few months instead of a couple of years. The difference with Twitter is like, because it's a public platform, you're seeing all of this strife and change and all of that happening publicly. And another thing is like Twitter is a beta on production platform. So like you're seeing the changes that they make live, and some quirks happening live on the platform. Honestly, like, even though people are seeing like their dirty laundry being aired, I think it's gonna, like, either the company was going to fail slowly, it was going to succeed slowly, or it's going to succeed quickly or fail quickly. And if it was going to fail, better to fail quickly, and then he can write it off. If it was going to succeed, better to succeed quickly, and then he'll make money faster. So I would, yeah, like if it was going to fail, it was going to fail anyway. If it was going to succeed, it's going to succeed anyway. And my money says, do whichever faster.
Oh, your reply to this was, I didn't predict your reply there. It was fascinating. I got such mixed feelings about it, really. I have no idea why he bought it in the first place. I would have thought sending rockets into outer space and also electric car company would be more than enough usage of your time. But so I always puzzled why he wanted to buy it in the first place. But maybe I'm being naive there.
Because he has an instant. There's a lot of potential reasons for him to have this. One, in Asia, there's like WeChat. There's an app in Asia that is like the central platform for like communication, for payment, for everything that everyone in China is on. And I mean, if he can turn Twitter into that for the world, or at least the English speaking countries first and then the world, then like, I mean, he wins. Like, but no matter what, I mean, like, he can immediately communicate with everyone that's on Twitter about everything he does, because there is no central place anymore that everyone goes. The internet is decentralized. TV is decentralized. Like, I mean, when he launches something new, there's no guarantee that people are watching it on YouTube. There's no TV channel that everyone's watching, but he knows that people will check his Twitter feed and say, okay, I'm posting something. Like, this is the nightly news that everyone's tuning into now. And so he can control, like, he can be William Randolph Hearst on Twitter. And that alone is worth the money that he spent.
Yeah, I think I can see where you're coming from, Heather. Well, I think we'll wrap it up now, Heather. You have to come back. I think it's been a great discussion. I think as normal, we've covered a lot of diverse areas. Yeah, and it's been a great conversation. So like I say, folks, got a great guest next week. Got some changes in the new year. We will be back soon. See you soon, folks. Bye.